Early. Going live a couple minutes early. Gotta boom. Steve O did it in the room. I hope nobody get hit it. Shut it. God damn. Pick up your mans. So I'm just playing. Hey man, we about to watch. I guess the MS is they ain't playing about this. This they look. They had got picked up a couple years ago, but they not letting them informants go. So we about to be what they got on their road ahead of them. Well, I know. Be what they talk about.
Pedro Milo, Francis.
Wait, Sean Marshall, come outside. San Marino and Menlo.
Happening now, Los Angeles law enforcement officials have indicted 23 members of the notorious MS-13 gang for alleged widespread trafficking of meth.
Do you know what is in Koreatown now? Or who has always been here and always stay here? Not even South and North Korea can join?
No, I'm not sure what the answer is.
MS, God!
See that powerhouse.
Rap News Street Politics, the best hood channel on
Oh
YouTube.
shit.
And we
That
back
was
in the
Rambo.
streets with La Mara Salvatrucha 13, MS-13 in LA. Now, we all know
Hey.
MS-13 gets cracking in the city, but we got to speak on what's been cracking lately with these dudes, where they laid down a federal informant inside a grocery store in the Hoovers while he was on the phone with the FBI, as well as hunting all other federal informants in the last 3 indictments that they've had since 2017.
Yeah, that's what I was
We
saying.
also got monthly murder quotas from each one of their hoods in LA, and situations where they pulling people's hearts out their body, which is crazy, as well as they Fulton Locos clique.
It's Mortal Kombat. That shit, Mortal Savages.
In Van Nuys, taking people up to that LA National Forest and picking them apart, and imposing a requirement of at least 1 homicide under your belt before you get put onto the set.
That's why I be saying, like, we really not in California, bro. This is just another extension to Mexico. Y'all can put the United States on there all y'all want. The Mexicans gonna look at it how they want to look at it. This our land, and we're gonna continue to do illegal shit to get in and out and make money. Message.
Now, before we get cracking, man, make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe.
And I know MS-13 is Salvadorian, so I'm not stupid.
To the channel, and we know about 60% of y'all is watching the channel on y'all TV. Make sure y'all like on there as well. We finna get down into some nasty details with this one, and if y'all want to see the uncut version, make sure y'all tapping with us on Patreon of them. But y'all let us know in the comments out of those 3 who's getting cracking.
Whole lot of young hitters, shout out to my young niggas. Whole lot of young Jedi's, I turn them niggas to the top better. All of my niggas are bosses, walk a nigga to the dark side from the deep south. Want smoke, nigga, get smoke, nigga, it's on site.
But with that being said, we're going to start with a federal indictment that came down on MS in January 2023, but ended up being filed November 8th, 2023, where it's alleged that Temper, Skinny, and Dr. Azo, along with 20 other people, was running a crazy drug conspiracy being led by an inmate from MS-13 who was also from the Mexican Mafia. Now, the initial indictment alleged that Skinny and Temper were the shot callers for MS-13 Los Angeles, and Herlin Barrientos, aka Dr. Azo, was the main drug supplier for all MS-13 cliques, who ended up turning into a federal informant, snitching on his homies, and getting put to rest while talking to his FBI handlers. Now, one thing we got to break down is the structure
That's
of
what they got
MS-13. So over the years, MS-13 has kind of been known to have multiple leaders, dating back to around 2013, 2014, when around 60 of their members went down on the federal indictment, and 2 of their most high-ranking members, who were actually the first 2 MS-13s to be inducted into the Mexican Mafia, went down and messed their organizational structure up in LA. From that point, there's been multiple meetings between MS on who's going to take the reins for the hood. And when I say the hood, I mean all 4 different MS-13 hoods in LA. So we know the main one we got Koreatown, MacArthur Park, which is somewhat one of their most notorious, being in the heart of LA, with that hood going from Western all the way to MacArthur Park between Wilshire and Olympic and bleeding a little bit above Lafayette Park. Now, cliques they'll have out of here are the Leeward clique, Coronado clique, Francis Avenue, and Normandy Avenue, just to name a few. They also got a hood.
I ain't gonna lie, I be over there on Leeward with them niggas. I don't be with them niggas, but I be, you an LA person,
over here in Mid-City, which is pretty much a break off from the Koreatown clique. Basically one of the same thing, but that hood is going.
Just know for the people that ain't from LA who watch my videos, look, man. If you just like they say in other states, man, you stay to yourself, be to yourself, stay true to yourself, don't do too much. You gonna be all right.
Going from Olympic to Pico between Crenshaw and Arlington. Just up Western, they'll have another clique in East Hollywood, really centered around Lemon Grove Park, Harvard Boulevard clique, with the whole hood going from Santa Monica Boulevard to Melrose between Van Ness and Vermont. And some of that hood does go a little bit above Santa Monica Boulevard. But like I said, Main Street's over here, Harvard and Hobart. Their next hood, which is known to be the one that piles up the bodies, is Fulton Avenue over here in Valley Glen.
Yeah, he had to put that out there.
North Hollywood area, where Fulton Avenue is going to be right in the middle of their hood. And they going all the way from Sherman Way down to Oxnard Street between Woodman and Coldwater Canyon, and really existing heavily on Van Noy Street in Ethel. And they do actually have a set in the Pasadena Denver Lane Bloods as well, but we're not really going to speak on that set in this video. But like I said, when a lot of their members went down in 2013, 2014, a lot of these clique leaders in these hoods stepped up into the leadership position to point MS-13 in the right direction. And at the time of this indictment, Temper and Skinny were the main two guys that were allegedly running the program for MS-13 LA.
Vago, la Mara Salvatrucha, Hons. Saludo ahí al homeboy, Big 13, ahí a su clica, a West Toronto, Hons. Mara Salvatrucha, controla, carnal. Siempre, homie. Estamos siempre.
Now, the feds really stay on MS-13, but with this situation, in about 2021, they started watching the inmate who was conducting drug sales from prison and, of course, appointing a treasurer from MS-13 to bring him and La M.A. the money back. And on July 5th, 2021, this is the first instance where the feds implement a confidential informant who is also from MS-13 to communicate with the MS-13 inmate in regards to purchasing meth from him and other co-conspirators. Now, the crazy thing about CI1, this man was cooperating for the FBI for immigration benefits, and up to the point where this indictment came out, he had already made $150,000 from the FBI for his cooperation. But they start rocking with this dude, making drug sales for about a year until May 2022, when Dr. Azo comes in and physically inserts himself into dealing drugs to the confidential informant. Now, this is when things kind of start going awry for Dr. Azo. Now, on May 18, 2022, Dr. Azo gets a phone call, and he's instructed by the MS-13 inmate to sell a pound of meth to the confidential informant for $1,200. Dr. Azo comes, sells 870 grams for $2,400. So he done shorted the snitch 36 grams and sold him an extra P instead of what was instructed, probably because he didn't have to pay a fee on that second P. But this is an act that he does continuously. August 17th, MS-13 instructs him to sell 2 Ps of meth this time for 2 racks. He turns around and sells 866 grams for 2 racks to the confidential informant. This time shorting him 40 grams. Here we are again, October 4th, 2022. MS-13 instructs him to sell a P4 band, and he turns around and shorts him 23 grams, giving him 430 for the band. So Dr. Azo's out here pinching the sack, giving to the feds, man. But this goes on to happen 4 more times up until the.
Come on, gang. Why would you short somebody out their age? Why would you short somebody out? Come on, out there changing in their money so you can use it.
The CI is late on the payment. Dr. Azo has the nerve to call the treasurer of MS-13, who's in charge of collecting not only tax money, but drug money on behalf of the MS-13 inmate and snitches to him saying the CI has not paid yet and to go collect the money. So Dr. Azzo has been playing the dirty game. I'm going to just say that. Now, after everything comes out with the indictment, Dr. Azzo posts bond for 25 racks. Gets some chili from his mom, his sister, his cousin, some of his friends. He gets out on house arrest December 2023. He ends up taking a guilty plea deal March 2024, and this is when MS-13 finds out that he's cooperating with them people and put a green light on Dr. Azzo. Now, shortly after this, December 2024, a superseding indictment comes out on MS-13 with new counts now alleging murder and robbery. Now, like I said, on that first indictment, there were 23 people on it. This second indictment had 19 people on it. 11 of the people from the first indictment were not alleged in the superseding indictment. What we have to say, with the superseding indictment, it doesn't necessarily dismiss the original indictment. So if your name isn't brought up on the superseding indictment, that doesn't automatically mean that the first charges from the first indictment are null and void. Most of the time, you still have to face those charges. But what we see here is Temper and Dr. Azzo not on this superseding indictment. Now, I can't say anything about Temper, but we know Dr. Azzo, full-time snitch and cooperating with the FBI. But now they're alleging that Skinny is the leader of MS-13 and responsible, along with other click shot callers running the MS-13 program. So now that Dr. Azzo is on house arrest, back on the streets, we know he's hiding. The thing is, he's had addresses in multiple different La Mata hoods. He stayed on Radford and Van Noyen at one point. He stayed in the middle of that Koreatown set on Westmoreland and 7th. And he also had ties to 77th and Wadsworth on the east side. And most recently, he was on 97th, not too far from where they laid him down at on Fig, which takes us to February 18th, 2025. The murder of Dr. Azzo. So everybody knows the basics of a green light. When a Mexican Mafia puts a green light on you, it's up. Whoever sees you and knows that you have that green light, most people, especially from your hood, are gonna know they have to take action, no matter what clique they're from in the hood. Dr. Azzo was from the Vagos clique. But like I said, with him being the supplier for all MS-13 cliques, he's very well known. So at this day on 91st and Fig, at the Superior Groceries, Dr. Azzo pops his head in there while on house arrest. At the same time, an individual by the name of Robert Aguilar, aka Decente or Inocente, with himself and his two homies, also comes into the store. All three of them from the Centrales clique of MS-13. So all four of these men pop inside the store and they're going shopping. At some point, Inocente bumps into Dr. Azzo and it's like a reunion. You know what I'm saying? So what's up? Now, who knows how Dr. Azzo was feeling? As we get into the story, you can tell he was kind of feeling comfortable for some reason. Now, we seen how he was shorting people with drugs. This dude is very arrogant to be comfortable with other MS-13 members as a snitch outside on the streets. So after Aguilar bumps into Dr. Azzo in the produce section, he goes to the register, makes his purchase, and also makes a WhatsApp call, and then proceeds to head outside, waiting for his homies. When his homies gets outside, he seemingly tells them, go ahead, I'm going to sit right here and holler at the homie. He proceeds to meet Dr. Azzo outside the front of the grocery store and has a word with him. What he's really doing is stalling Dr. Azzo out because he placed a call to Danger and Dennis Urias, who are also from the same clique as Dr. Azzo, the Vagos clique, to come take out the trash. So Inocente places a call to Urias, whose phone pings at MacArthur Park. He stalled Dr. Azzo for about 20 minutes in front of the store. The next ping on Urias's phone was right on Figueroa Street by the Superior Groceries. Now, when detectives noticed Urias's phone being called from Inocente's phone, they realized that Urias had used this number from a prior arrest in January of 2025 when Glendale PD took him down. So not only did detectives have Urias's phone number at the spot, shortly after Urias went down in Glendale, Glendale detectives pulled over a CRV driven by Gravel Santiago, Danger, and along with Urias' cell phone pinging on Fig, that Honda CRV that Danger got pulled over in also pulls up on Fig. So it said at this point, these dudes is spinning the block, end up parking on Fig and jumping out. It said that a masked assailant runs up to the front of the grocery store and tries to squeeze on Dr. Azo, but the gun jams. At this point, Inocente and the masked assailant run into a neighborhood. Surveillance video catches both of them dudes run into the Honda CRV. At that point, Dr. Azo runs back into the grocery store and calls 911. Now, I don't know what he was thinking, but after he gets off the phone with 911, he decides to call his FBI handler, Special Agent Joseph Corelli. He tells the FBI that he was just talking to a man named Inocente from the Centrales clique, and that somebody pulled a gun out on him and tried to kill him. And he's basically asking for help over here on Fig. While he's on the call with the FBI, he walks out again in front of the store, and Danger and Urias end up tag teaming on him, laying him down right here at the grocery store with the FBI on the phone, listening to the whole play. And this is what MS-13 is looking to do to anybody cooperating with the police. So with the FBI listening to this man get his life taken over the phone, he remembers the last thing Dr. Azo tells him about Inocente. There were multiple confidential informants and confidential witnesses on both the original and the superseding indictment. The FBI reaches out to an individual known as CW2 in the indictment, who's also from the Centrales clique, and asks them who is Inocente. CW2 proceeds to give a description of a member by the name of Inocente, or again, Decente, who joined MS-13 in July 2023. Now, once they have that description, they ended up looking back into surveillance photos that were conducted on MS-13 at various points in time, and they found somebody at a funeral that matched the description of Inocente given by CW2. Now, this is a very important thing that y'all got to know. Facial recognition. Clearly, facial recognition is used on a federal level, and a lot of times they hide it under the guise of individuals that have been convicted of crimes, more than likely a felony, or for immigration purposes.
That's what I mean.
Now, on a state level, California-wise, it varies by county. Not every county has the tools or the right to pull up facial recognition records, especially if you don't have a record. But as we see, the federal government ran this description through their surveillance images, came up with the match, and threw that picture into the facial recognition system, where they came up with a John Doe with a unique identifier. That unique identifier allowed them to squeeze the facial recognition database and come up with a mugshot of Robert Aguilar, aka Inocente. And at that point, they took the picture back to the CW. He said, yep, that's Inocente, and slid him their number. This is when they started to triangulate the calls between Inocente, Danger, and Urias, pinging them all the way from MacArthur Park and sliding all the way to the murder of Dr. Azo. 3 days later, the feds have CW1, who's from the Bagos clique, called a shot caller from the Bagos clique on WhatsApp, and they recorded it. At this time, the shot caller with the initials AR told CW1, and I quote, that they had to take out the garbage and they had to press play on a son of a whore. Now, about 3 weeks later, March 15, 2025, CHP finds the CRV burnt up on Satakoy and Bel Air. This is just north of the Fulton Avenue, North Hollywood clique of MS-13. So it seems like that piece of trash was kind of left close to the crib, if you know what I'm saying. And about a month after that, May 12th, Urias is arrested based on phone call evidence and the Honda CRV. And guess what? They pulled the Perkins on him. Now, for everybody not familiar with the Perkins, that's a confidential informant that's used in custody in a cell with an individual who acts like they a homie or from your set and manipulates you somewhat into speaking about your case before everything is played out. It said that the Perkins...
Only time you need to speak about your case is when you are talking to your attorney or your public defender. Children, don't get put in these positions if you don't know what the fuck you doing.
Of course, befriended Urias and pulled a cold move on him by acting like he was going to medical.
Excuse me for cussing.
He came back and told Urias he seen a flyer of him and his co-defendants, and he seen one of his crimees talking to the detectives. Played a cold move on Urias, and that was enough to get Urias talking about the situation, identifying the two men he was with, and said that the call came from up top, that Dr. Azo was cooperating, and he had to get gone. He admitted that him and Danger pulled the tag team move on him and laid him down in front of the grocery store on Fig. But trust me, this is just the beginning of how La Mata gets down.
It's all good. Wait, sorry, miss, nigga. This nigga on the down, this nigga. Oh, bitch ass nigga.
And this case had a related case to it with an individual named Kevin Obando. Now, he is also a federal informant on the run from MS-13. It's another drug conspiracy case that he pleaded guilty to, and he's cooperating and admitted to participating in it. And he's going to take the stand on anybody that's about to take it to trial. He just got out on bond. I'm not going to say where he at, though. But he's somebody that's looking to get little away from this situation, especially after Dr. Azo got hit. He also
I'm not gonna say where he at though, but he just paroled though, so be on the lookout. Basically, that's what he's saying.
told the federal court that he lost his passport. Mind you, when you go on the federal bond, you got to relinquish all your international travel documents. He said he lost his passport. I doubt it. I think he on the run. He trying to get up out of here. And the reason these hits really play out the way they do is because of the structure La Mata has. So this is a transnational organization.
Structure. I'm talking structure. They have to build a whole prison in a real country where they hood at. It's to hold all of them because it was too much. Now imagine if they all come, if they just escape that prison and just all come up here. Imagine the structure they have. It ain't gonna be no. This gonna be MS-13 hood, all of LA. Because if y'all seen my reaction video, I don't even think y'all seen my reaction video. They got them. They can never see the day of light again. The prison they made in out there in Salvador, in El Salvador, ES. They can't never see they can't go outside. They can't do nothing. They don't even got no mats. They don't got no mats, and they're there for the rest of their life. Just from being from that game, they ain't even had to catch nobody. Some of them just got put on, and they still got a life sentence. I'm just saying, structure. Where the rats gonna run to? Back over there and get killed? Where they gonna run to? I'm just saying.
Who said to be either the number 1 or the number 2 organization, along with 18th Street, to be responsible for the most gang murders in the world. But the thing about LA Mata is other members from other locations come to LA to have leadership meetings. MS has multiple types of meetings. Leadership is one. Regular general meetings, clique meetings, different ways that they communicate amongst themselves. But it said that LA Mata is independent and self-governing, making its own decisions. But of course, they do have La M on top of them, and they also communicate with El Salvador. And the main thing we see in these meetings is conversations about money, structure, and who's cooperating with the police. Now, like we said, when they had some high-ranking members go down in 2014, another indictment came down right after that in 2016 with Jose Romero, aka Porky, was alleged to be a top member or a lead shot caller in MS-13. But the thing is, there were 11 dudes under him who ran the cliques at MS-13, and they held several meetings where nobody wanted to raise their hand to truly be the overall leader of the set because nobody wanted that attention and heat on them. So that's when the plan came together for Porky, along with those 11 clique leaders, to run MS collectively. And we see in that meeting, CIs were around. It said that Porky patted everybody down for the wire and somebody did have a phone with somebody else on the other line. Porky ripped the battery out and threw the phone out. At that time, they were also dealing with a situation between the Coronado and Leeward cliques, where it said that the Coronados had killed 2 members from Leeward. So for the penalty, Coronado had to give up some of their territory to the Leeward clique. This type of organizational structure is how things play out the way they do with MS-13 always coming out in a federal indictment. But after they came down on Porky and his co-defendants in 2017, they come with another indictment in 2019, which is one of the worst in terms of the murders in La Mata's LA tenure. So with about 20 cliques existing with La Mata LA, the Fulton Avenue clique in North Hollywood Valley Glen is said to be the most dangerous in current times. Reason being is because in 2016, they decided to adapt organizational structure of La Mata in El Salvador, requiring every member to have committed a homicide prior to joining the gang. You have to kill somebody in order to even get put on. And it said that Splinter, Snoopy, and Delito were the shot callers of Fulton Ave, running the tight ship. At this time, there was also an overall order that mandated all MS-13 hoods commit at least 2 murders a month against their enemies. And the key people they were looking for were, of course, people cooperate with the police. And at this point, this is where we see Fulton Avenue finding creative ways to get rid of their enemigos. It's alleged that they killed about 24 people in a 2-year time span. And on March 6, 2017, they started taking people up to the LA National Forest. And the feds alleged that Angel Guzman, aka Splinter, along with a few other co-defendants, choked out somebody named JS and took him up to the National Forest, where they pretty much ripped this dude apart, took pictures of him, and threw his body parts in the canyon. Now, after this, a lot of their members changed their name. After these hits, we see an upgrade in names, but it said Roberto Mendez, aka Desquiciado, changed his name to Predator after they did that to JS over here in the forest. On April 13, 2017, MS used some teenage girls to try to lure somebody with the initials of GB to a secluded area. It seemed like GB wasn't falling for it, but on April 20th, Predator, with his new name, ended up catching up with GB, pistol whipping him, and then tapping him in with that machete. Also, taking him up to Angeles National Forest because they felt like he was an informant. And it said after they stripped him, they also took his Santa Muerte chains as trophies. On June 4th, 2017, they took EH to a trap house, did that work to him, and took him to the National Forest after hitting him with the blade. October 30th, 2017, they caught up with somebody with the initials of BA, took him to the forest, and you know what they did to him. On April 7th, 2018, they felt like somebody with the initials of JHC had passed information to a rival gang. He ended up in the forest as well. And right before this indictment jumped out on Fulton Ave, Delito took an individual with the name of OF to a secluded area, and him and his homies took turns shooting him in the face, and after burying the shell cases on Lindley Ave and West Valley Crazy's hood in Reseda. So all of this is why they got these federal informants and overall snitches. It doesn't make sense to sit here, put in all the work to be a part of MS-13, and then turn snitch. Look how they coming on these dudes. But like I said, we're going to have a separate edit of this video on Patreon. Y'all make sure y'all go check that out. But again, we shouting out all.
Hey, shout out Rap News Street Politics. They always coming through. It's crazy. Bro, I already knew that was lethal, so I ain't even gonna say too much. Just like, comment, and subscribe on God. Like, there's gonna be more content. I'm gonna follow up on that. I already know they gonna. Yeah, that's not my politics. I just did the reaction, for y'all. But like, comment, and subscribe. Would appreciate it. Man, I'll get my haircut, gang. Bokeh. Baka Binky. Boom.